Hello and welcome to another edition of Profiles and Issues, the cable television program that gives you in-depth interviews with prominent people on important issues in the news. I'm your host, Dennis Rudin. Our topic for this program: how can we stop hate crimes in the United States? Our focus for this broadcast: the continued rise of anti-Semitism in America. My guest for this program, Avi Posnick, Executive Director of the Northeast and New England region of an organization called Stand With Us. Stand With Us is an international, nonpartisan educational group that fights anti-Semitism and supports Israel. But first, these news notes. One of the most crucial issues facing residents in Westchester County and our country is the dramatic rise in hate crimes in 2023. The Anti-Defamation League, which is a Jewish organization that tracks incidents of violence, reported that after the Hamas attack on Israeli civilians on October 7th, anti-Semitic incidents in the United States increased to over 38%. The league cited 312 incidents between October 7th of 2023 through October 23rd of this year, in which 190 were linked to the fighting in Israel and Gaza. Jews, Palestinians, and Muslims told CNN that they were experiencing a growing fear about hatred towards them as a result of the Hamas attack. According to the United States Federal Bureau of Investigations, known by many as the FBI, released data in October which showed that hate crimes in the United States are the highest since its investigations began in 1991. I will be discussing with my guest what we as citizens and his organization can do to stop hate crimes in the United States. And now my interview with Avi Posnick of Stand With Us. Avi Posnick, welcome to Profiles and Issues, and thank you for coming on the program. In my introduction, I noted that according to reports by the Anti-Defamation League and the FBI, hate crimes and anti-Semitic incidents increased dramatically in the United States in 2023. 190 of them alone were linked to the October 7th brutal attacks by Hamas on Israeli civilians and the battle in Gaza between the Israeli army and Hamas. Please tell us about Stand With Us and briefly explain the goals of the organization and how it can help both the Jewish and non-Jewish population deal with hate and anti-Semitism.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here. Stand With Us was founded to help especially students and communities fight anti-Semitism and stand up. And so one of our major focuses when Stand With Us was founded back in 2001, now 22 years ago, was to empower students on college campuses who were experiencing many different speakers who were criticizing Israel, who were targeting them as Jewish students for being Jews, and targeting them and holding them accountable for anything that they felt Israel was doing wrong. And to this day, we see that continue, and I think it has exacerbated and is now on steroids since October 7th. And so Stand With Us is an organization that is there to educate and empower students to support Israel and fight anti-Semitism. And we do that through our programs, our trainings, our Emerson Fellowship, which is our campus fellowship program on North American campuses and on college campuses around the world. Stand With Us has grown to offices around the world on 6 continents, supporting students, and not just on college campuses, but in high schools as well, because we wanted to make sure that we can reach students before they get to campus, but also seeing how students in high schools are experiencing anti-Semitism as well. And so we wanted to make sure that we're providing them with that same support, with those resources and empowerment to stand up and fight back. And not just for Jewish students, but these are supports that we're providing to build relationships with non-Jewish students as well. And there have been many, many schools on college campuses and high schools where we're doing joint events and programs and initiatives with Hindu students on campuses, with Muslim students on college campuses and in high schools, with Asian American students on college campuses and in high schools, really building that support base and that network so that we can stand with each other against this anti-Semitism and hate that is targeting many of our communities.
Thank you. You had sent us a tape, which you're going to play now, about Stand With Us. And then I'm going to follow up with some questions.
You feel the connection deeply. The history and the people inspire you. You yearn for peace and want others to know the beauty of Israel. You want to inspire them to care as you do and to stand up for what is right. Do you take for granted that they know the whole story? Do they know how far we have come, where we've been, where we are going? Are they inspired by Israel? Do they understand never again? Too often, Jews, Israelis, and allies are attacked because of who we are.
We support the Antifa! We support the Antifa! Israel is a terrorist state! Israel is a terrorist state!
Because we want to see Israel live and thrive in peace. Our friends, our families, our communities, our students feel the hostility. Every day requires courage and strength.
You have blood on your hands! Welcome on our campus!
We are told that we don't belong.
Get off our white campus now! I've been this campus for 10 years! Get the off our campus now!
That an entire history, nation, and people don't matter.
Zionism must be destroyed. It must be gotten rid of. Every aspect of it.
You want to stand tall, to make a difference, to ensure that your peers, your friends, and your families understand the facts. To tell a story of resilience, justice, and hope. To help build a more just and peaceful world. That is what Stand With Us does. That is who Stand With Us is. We represent you when you can't be there, with offices on 6 continents. We represent you in high schools, where we reach over 100,000 students each year with the beauty of Israel and foster the next generation of Zionist leaders. We are your voice on campus, training students how to lead and reach over 150,000 of their peers each year in the face of intolerance and bigotry. We represent you when we reach 100 million people on Facebook during peak weeks. We educate for the future by sponsoring speaker tours and holding conferences around the world, training leaders and lifting communities. We are your hotline when anti-Semitism rises and civil rights are trampled on, with over 250 attorneys standing by for students, faculty, and community members. We represent your legacy when we partner with over 700 different organizations around the world and share our precious resources with groups who care as you do about Israel. We are working in your name when we use innovative teaching methods to inspire middle schoolers with the wonder of Israel. We represent you when it's time to push back against anti-Semitism, when it is time to teach, to tell the world about Israel, to stand up for what is right. And we have only just begun. Help us reach more people around the globe. Help us empower more of our peers, your peers, to be brave, to be confident, to fight smart, to win, and to always, always stand tall.
Avi, that was some inspiring video. Tell me, or tell our audience, if they want to get involved with Stand With Us, how can they contact you?
Sure. So there are, first of all, thank you for that. And there are a number of different ways that people can get involved, that they can support Stand With Us, especially if they are here in the New York area. Obviously, via email, info.ny@standwithus.com. It's some account that's monitored will get you involved, whether you want to volunteer, or you have students who are on a college campus, high schools, middle schools, who need support. You want us to come to your synagogue. You're an alum of a college campus. We'll get you involved that way as well. So there are a number of different ways that people can get involved, and they are also following us on social media. Just since October 7th, we've been able to engage over 500 million people around the world on various platforms, translated into different languages, and providing them that way as well with information and ways that they can respond to the anti-Semitism and show support for Israel as well.
All right, just one more time. What's that address or email that they would send again?
info.ny @standwithus.com.
Okay, thank you. In the video and in your opening introduction, opening remarks, it spoke about how Stand With Us empowers and energizes students and communities with training and educational programs. Could you give an example, like, for instance, walking on the street and someone is wearing a yarmulke or some kind of garment or some where they can be identified as Jews, and the other people on the street start to get hostile. Do you train people how to handle situations like that? Or if you could give us some examples of how you train students and even older people how to cope with, the anti-Semitism.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate, I'm sure, right? Obviously, as you're aware, we've seen too many cases of especially Jews who are identifiably Jewish, whether they're on the streets or even on a college campus, who are harassed. And unfortunately, in some cases, we've seen Jews who have been physically attacked, again, on the streets or on a college campus. And, of course, we want to make sure that everyone, first of all, is safe. But we also encourage people whenever they see some kind of anti-Semitic incident or activity taking place, to try as much as possible to record it. So we have evidence that we can go after those who are committing and perpetrating these anti-Semitic incidents and crimes. We want to make sure that everything is reported properly to law enforcement. And of course, obviously, if you see something that is happening or someone's in danger, right, 911 is obviously your go-to. But one of the things that we've also done, and this was actually announced over the summer, and we've seen since then a number of other cities and municipalities across the country who have taken interest in this, is in Suffolk County, New York, for example. We worked with the county executive and the legislature and the police department to use their 311 system for people to be able to report anti-Semitic incidents that are taking place. Obviously, it's not a substitute for 911, but it's a way for them to document what's going on. You see a swastika somewhere, someone's driving by in a car and says something. We want people to feel comfortable reporting what they're seeing and what's going on. And I think that of all the numbers that we're seeing of the anti-Semitic incidents, and you mentioned some of them at the very beginning, there are still that are many that are not reported. And so we want to make sure that we can have people feel comfortable reporting things as much as possible, so we get the full picture of what's going on, and that we can remedy the situation as best as possible. And we've, especially on a college campus, we tell students to, of course, document what's going on, share it with us on our website at standwithus.com. On the top right, you can quickly file an incident report about what happened, sending it to us, and we will be in touch with you from our Center for Combating Anti-Semitism, from our legal department, making sure that we provide you with the support and putting together the right strategy to respond to what happened.
And any other examples that you might want to give?
So I think, one of the things that we do in one of our trainings is, you take a college campus, for example. You look at our Emerson Fellowship Program, which is our campus fellowship program for college students around the world. It's, a program that students have to apply for. They come to a conference out in LA before the school year begins. They receive the training, the mentorship. They're running programs. They are our eyes and ears, and they're also trained as to how to have conversations on college campuses, what to do if in advance of running an event to make sure that it does not get disrupted. But if it does get disrupted, you have, hecklers, or you have people who are trying to, shout down the speaker or try to prevent it from happening. We provide them with that training of what to do in advance, what to do when something happens, what to do afterwards. We have a workshop and a booklet called Know Your Rights, right? What you can and can't do if something happens. What are your rights on a college campus or in a high school when trying to speak up for Israel, speak up against anti-Semitism, talk about the current situation. And so these are some of the workshops, these are some of the materials that we provide, not just to our Emerson Fellows. They're obviously our go-to students, but to students at large, to partnering organizations, to high school students, making sure that they have the information that they need to have a safe environment and be able to respond if and when something does happen to them.
Okay, this next cut, it's short, but it's two cuts together. One of Islamic students demonstrating, and the leader mentioned her purpose, and one of a Jewish student's insights. And as we look at this, I'd like you and the audience to focus in on their reasoning and their feelings as they speak, and we'll take it from there.
Between rain showers Friday on the campus of Rutgers University in New Jersey, members of the local chapter of the Students for Justice in Palestine staged the latest in a series of demonstrations. After the Hamas attack on Israel, the group issued a statement calling it a, quote, justified retaliation, and those behind the attack, freedom fighters. Now it was demanding an end to the bombing and siege of Gaza by Israel and defending its own right to speak out.
They report us as anti-Semitic. However, what we are really, truly doing is speaking about the atrocities and crimes against humanity in Palestine.
Protesters mostly covered themselves to hide their identities and spoke to us anonymously, citing fears of a backlash.
Tensions are high. Plenty of students are really very terrified for their safety, including self. I know a lot of my peers are afraid to leave their homes, staying at home as much as possible. Some people skipping classes. So there's definitely been a real threat to our safety and a sense of just kind of terrifying concern.
Down the street in the campus's Hillel House, part of an international Jewish student organization, senior Shari Samuel said members of her community also have a newfound fear.
I have some friends who have never considered taking off their kippah, which is their religious head covering, to go to class, and right after this started considering that, which is really terrifying.
After the horror of the Hamas attack, Hillel helped organize a vigil for students to come together to grieve and mourn. Now, Samuel said she's hurt and angered by the actions of some on campus.
I don't want someone coming up to me and starting a conversation with me as if I'm the representative here on behalf of the entire people of Israel. I can only share my beliefs. And frankly, this has turned into a lot of anti-Semitism, and I don't want to put myself into harm's way.
I'd like to first get into what that young lady, Shari Samuel, said, the student, about the fact that, she has feelings about her Judaism, but she's afraid to exhibit it at times. And I think many adults that I have spoken to, including myself, you think twice about where you're going and whether you should wear, a cap or whatever that exhibits that. So my question is, how do you deal with something like that? I think it's a very conflicting thing. What's your feedback on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately, we're hearing too many stories and cases of students, especially on college campuses, and even like you said, people in the general community, Jews in the general community, who are nervous, right, to go about their lives, to go out in public and be seen potentially as identifiably Jewish, right? The student mentioned how her friends, before this wouldn't have thought about removing their identifiable the symbols or the yarmulke or the mezuzah from the door, and now they are. We have students who are feeling intimidated to walk around campus, who are feeling isolated. And, like I said, even in the community, people who have said they don't, they'll put a cap on when they're walking down the street, or they'll, hide their Star of David necklace if they're wearing that. And I think, for that to be the case in 2023 in the United States is a very sad situation. And it shows the climate of how bad anti-Semitism has gotten in parts of this country. You look at the protests that are taking place, and especially right after October 7th, even before Israel responded, right, in any way, you had protests here on the streets of New York City and in other cities, condemning Israel. Israel didn't even respond yet to what was happening, to what happened on October 7th. And I think, what we've seen since then is that the masks are off. We're seeing how all these things that are taking place, it has for all this time been a guise and a smokescreen for their anti-Semitism. And just to comment on that also, when we talk about the masks being off, as you saw in one of the video, yeah, the masks are also still on, where people are hiding now behind masks, so they can't be identified while they're protesting and while they're committing these things on campuses. So it's sad what the student is feeling, and she's not alone. There are many students, unfortunately, who are feeling this way, who are feeling intimidated, who are feeling isolated. And I think that what we saw on Capitol Hill earlier this week with the the testimonies that the number of college presidents gave reinforces the feeling and only helps students perpetuate that feeling when their own college presidents couldn't unequivocally say that calling for the genocide of Jews violates the policies, right, of the university. And for the students who are in the audience listening to that, watching that, I can only imagine, I can't even imagine what that must have, felt like to see their presidents, to see their campus presidents unable to, after multiple times, right? It wasn't just a one time, it was multiple times, ask the same question, and they still couldn't bring themselves to unequivocally say, yes, that violates, at least it violates the campus policies.
In the first segment, we see demonstrating, students that are supporting, well, their anger is aimed at, from what I can see, and you tell me your view, the first week when the October 7th war started, and the pictures came through national cable stations about the horrific, barbaric actions on Israeli civilians, everybody was horrified, and everybody was for the Jews. But then when Israel, went into Gaza, and people just saw the city being bombed and civilians being hurt. The news, the focus changed, and I think people forgot the reason why the Israeli army was there, and and part of that protest, they said, look, we are mad at you. You are killing our people, and these are young people that see pictures, that hear information on the internet. We live in a very electronic age. That's a tough thing to fight.
Yes.
Do
No,
you
and
have
I think,
strategy on that?
so to get to that, I mean, first of all, putting aside for a second the role that the, you know, certain media outlets have played in spreading misinformation and lies, you know, unfortunately, we've seen this script before. When in previous times when Israel has been attacked, you know, there's sympathy at first, and then when Israel responds, you know, there's outcry. You're doing too much. You know, stop it now. And we're seeing that to a degree play out now as well. And like you said, at first you had the sympathy. Everyone was, you know, all sad. And now that Israel is fighting back, seeing successes against Hamas, you have many who are saying, no, it's you have to stop it. There needs to be a ceasefire. And yes, no one wants to see innocent civilians killed. Israel is going out of its way, and these are the facts that we try to tell people through our social media and through the presentations that we give. Is of course Israel is not targeting civilians, unlike Hamas, which targets not just Israeli civilians and Jews, but puts their own civilians, puts the civilians of Gaza in harm's way, using them as human shields. Israel goes out of its way to warn the civilians, right, to get out of the way, where they're gonna be. No other army, right, warns populations that you know, we're coming, don't go here, we're going to target this building, we're going to you know, be in these specific areas, so stay out of the way. No one does that. You're fighting in urban warfare right now in many of these cities, street to street, you know, combat and warfare, with unfortunately civilians in harm's way, with Hamas infrastructure mixed in with the civilians, right? We've seen already cases where you have missiles that are in schools, the hospitals, for example, right? The infrastructure underneath the hospital, the weapons that have been found in the hospitals, the fact that Hamas has brought the hostages to the hospitals and has been operating from the hospitals, firing from hospitals and schools, playgrounds, homes. This is the fault of Hamas, and the fact that you are seeing civilians unfortunately being killed is the fault of Hamas. And even the United States, I believe, National Security Advisor, a number of weeks ago said that while Israel is urging, and this is when Israel was, you know, focusing the fighting up in the north, he even said that Israel was providing these humanitarian corridors for people to go to the south, for people to get out of the way, and Hamas was actively blocking these people from escaping. While Israel was telling them, please leave this area and try and provide them with access, Hamas was actively blocking them because they want more civilian deaths. They want to see the pictures of homes being bombed and civilian deaths. That's what Hamas wants. And that's something that, you know, when we see social media spreading that, and then using, you know, captions and stories saying that Israel is purposely targeting civilians, it only spreads these blood libels against the Jewish people, against Israel, and makes the situation seem as if Israel is the aggressor when, as I've said many times, right, Israel is not, and is trying to go out of its way to avoid civilian casualties. And so this is something that, you know, we provide this information on our social media channels. We have updated information as to what's going on. We're showing the truth of what's happening. You know, you go back early on when Israel was wrongfully accused of bombing a hospital. We right away as soon as we had it, put the footage and the conversations of the terrorists talking about how it was their bomb, you know, that hit the parking lot outside the hospital, showing how the hospital was still standing, but showing how, you know, that was something that Hamas terrorists did. And then, right, we saw how Israel unfortunately was framed.
You know, in the video, and you have spoken about education, and as you probably have seen, or tell us, please, you know, when I go through online, there's a lot of things on the internet that are not true, that are propaganda. And I was wondering, you know, since your focus is on the younger generation in high school and college, but even adults, what are you doing along the educational end of it to get this information in courses in high school or colleges, so that people just don't see images on the internet and just jump to conclusions?
Sure. So I would say two things on that. Number one, when we talk about education and providing the facts, which, like you said, unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation that's out there. So whenever we create, a fact sheet, a new booklet, everything is sourced, right? All the points that we put out there, we put, the footnotes. We show where we got the information from, who we're quoting, so that everyone can see where it's coming from and can, check up on, ensure that it's not something that we're just, making up and putting out there. What we do is we have, through our campus department, through our high school department, and even now our middle school department, we have professional staff and mentors who are going onto the college campuses, who are going into the high schools, who are running these workshops, these educational presentations, to ensure that as many students as possible are getting this information. And it's not just relying on, what they're seeing on TikTok or on, Instagram, which unfortunately they are seeing a lot of that. And we know that there's a lot of misinformation and lies and really bad things that are out there. And so we want to make sure that it's not just a matter of, okay, well, posting something online, but we want to make sure we're going into the classrooms, we're going into the schools, we're working with teachers, we're working in superintendents to make sure that they have the right resources and materials as well, in order to be able to talk about this, in order to ensure that the truth is getting out there. And so, we're doing this on the college campus level, we're doing this in the high school level, where sometimes we might be, it might be a school-wide assembly, it might be a whole course that's put together for the schools to ensure that the information gets out there.
Are you also putting pressure on college presidents and politicians and community leaders? Because, as you know, when October 7th hit and these demonstrations took place on campus, some of the reactions of some of the most prestigious colleges, as well as any college in this country, was shocking. They just
or lack thereof of reactions, unfortunately. And we've seen too many where the colleges and others, either didn't say something about what happened on October 7th, or it took them a very, very long time. And even then, right, they issued a very bland, not really saying much statement. And so there were a number of cases where, because of outreach and pressure, these universities then finally put out a strong statement. But from the beginning, that first week, we had sent a letter through our legal department and Center for Combating Anti-Semitism. We sent a letter to about 3,000 universities across the country, letting them know, what's been happening, the information, and letting them know that we are holding them accountable for the protection of Jewish students on their campuses. We laid out a series of things that we want to see that they can do to ensure that students are protected, from very basic things like ensuring there's extra security, for different events or for the buildings, adopting the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, an unequivocal statement condemning what happened on October 7th, condemning the brutality and the terrorism that took place by Hamas. And so there were many, that was something we did right from the beginning. We shortly after that sent a letter specifically to the general councils of universities. And we, in a number of cases now, we are potentially preparing for Title VI investigations against a number of universities who have failed to protect the Jewish students and have allowed a climate of hostility and anti-Semitism to fester and grow on the college campuses. And so this is something that we have been doing. Our legal team is very much involved and has been working in overdrive with with our students, with the campuses. And to give you a quick number and put things into perspective, over the course of a year, we pre-October 7th received or have been contacted to deal with about 400 or so incidents over the course of the year on college campuses. Since October 7th, it's been over 500. So when you think about those numbers, and so that's something that our legal team has been dealing with, like I said, in overdrive, our Center for Combating Anti-Semitism and our strategy team. But this is something that we have been from the very beginning, reaching out to college administrations, mobilizing alumni, reaching out to trustees to say that, we're expecting you to take certain actions to provide the basic protections of our students on your campus.
How do people distinguish between reading anti-Semitic propaganda and facts on the internet? Example, there's been statements that Israel is a apartheid state, and we know that under Golda Meir they helped Africa with farming, and they've done things to help other countries. But how do you, I didn't know this until I started looking for it, but many people don't. Are you doing anything to get information out like that?
Absolutely. And first of all, this is something, just to talk about, that claim that you mentioned. I mean, this is something that we've unfortunately been seeing for a while now. And one of the things that, we've been able to do, and we've posted a number of these quotes on social media and, in our fact sheets, in our booklets that talk about this, is we've had people who have lived through apartheid South Africa talk about why what is happening here is not apartheid, is a minimization, if you will, of what apartheid actually was. And so it's one thing for us to say it, but we also had people who have lived through it and know what apartheid is talk about what's going on. And so we've been putting out, even pre-October 7th, materials which can be found on our website, fact sheets, one-pagers, quick, pocket facts booklets that really go through what are some of the accusations against Israel, what's being said, and here are the facts. Here are the talking points, and helping people make the case. How do you take those facts and have the conversation as well? And so this is something that you can definitely find on our website, standwithus.com, and through the various materials and fact sheets talking about all different topics, about responding to different accusations, and just giving you the various historical information on different topics related to Israel and about anti-Semitism as well.
The social media that the young people use, offhand, I forgot the name of some of them. One is from TikTok and all of that, all of those. Do you also put information out on those?
Oh yeah, I mean the numbers
that's where
I mentioned.
A lot of it comes from.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the number I mentioned before about the over 500 million people, that's from all the different platforms that are out there that we're on. All the sharings, the likes, the engagements, the retweets when you talk about Twitter or X as it's called now. So yeah, we want to make sure, especially for young people who are, that's how they're getting their information. It's not, picking up a newspaper or, turning on the television. It's social media. It's on their phones, it's on their computers. And so we wanted to make sure that we are a part of those mediums as well to provide the actual information.
Avi Posnick, I want to thank you very much for giving us your time and coming on and trying to inform better the public how to handle the challenges. Was there anything that we left out that you might have wanted to add?
I think, definitely want to make sure that people know that we're here to be a resource for anyone who wants to learn, whether you're a student, whether you're a parent, grandparent. We're here to be a resource for you and make sure that you have the support and empowerment that is needed if you do see something that is anti-Semitic, you experience anything that is anti-Semitic or anti-Israel. We want to make sure that we're here for you. And so, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can find a lot of information on our website, standwithus.com, and use everything is user friendly, and we're here to be.
What's
we're
that
here for
website again, please?
www.standwithus.com.
Okay, thank you very much, and we hope to stay in contact. And please stay in contact with us because we're very concerned about this issue.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All of our programs can be seen on our website online at any time for free at www.thedennisrudenshow.com. Also, www.profilesandissues.com. Please send us your comments about our program to profile.issue@yahoo.com. This is Dennis Rudin saying so long for Profiles and Issues.